Tristan Cross stared at the code on his monitor, the blue light illuminating his focused expression. At 35, he had the weathered look of someone who had fought his way up from nothing. Raised in a trailer park in Redwood Flats by a single mother who worked 3 jobs, Tristan had clawed his way through community college and then earned a scholarship to Northbridge Tech, where his brilliant mind flourished. The headquarters of Hayes Tech hummed around him. As a senior developer, Tristan was respected, but not celebrated, exactly how he preferred it. His colleagues saw only what he allowed them to see, a quiet, competent programmer who kept to himself. None of them knew about his side projects or the patents he had been quietly accumulating. Still here, Cross. Damian Hayes, the company founder, stopped by Tristan's cubicle. Your wife called the front desk. Something about dinner reservations. Tristan checked his watch and cursed under his breath. Thanks, Damian. I lost track of time. That woman's too good for you. Hayes joked, though there was an edge to his voice that Tristan had learned to recognize. Damian had made his interest in Celeste clear from the day Tristan had brought her to the company holiday party 3 years ago. Don't I know it? Tristan replied with a tight smile, shutting down his computer. Celeste Sally Cross was waiting at Le Jardin, her perfectly manicured nails drumming against the white tablecloth, when Tristan arrived 20 minutes late. Let me guess, she said, not looking up from her phone. The algorithm was more interesting than dinner with your wife. I'm sorry, Cell. The Bellworth project deadline got moved up. She sighed dramatically, tossing her auburn hair over one shoulder. Of course it did. Heaven forbid Damian Hayes's golden goose take a night off. The waiter arrived with champagne Tristan hadn't ordered. Compliments of Mr. Vincent, he said with a practiced smile. Celeste's face transformed, her irritation replaced by a dazzling smile. How thoughtful. Is he here tonight? Just left, Mrs. Cross. He asked me to send his regards. Tristan watched as his wife's eyes darted around the restaurant, disappointed. He knew Julian Vincent, the charismatic CEO of NovaQuest, the golden child of Falcon Ridge and Hayes Tech's main competitor. Tristan also knew Vincent had never once spoken to him at industry events, yet somehow knew Celeste's preferred champagne. Later that night, Tristan lay awake beside his sleeping wife, revisiting the conversation they'd had over dinner. Celeste's complaints about their modest house in a mediocre neighborhood, her thinly veiled comparisons between his salary and what her friends' husbands earned, the way her eyes lit up whenever NovaQuest was mentioned. You could be so much more, she told him, not for the first time, if you just play the game instead of hiding in your little coding world. What Celeste didn't know, what no one knew, was that Tristan's little coding world had produced an algorithm that would revolutionize artificial intelligence processing. He had developed it at home, away from Hayes Tech's intellectual property agreements, and it was worth billions to the right buyer. Tristan's phone buzzed softly. A text from his old college roommate, Adria Miles. Everything's in place. Paperwork tomorrow. You sure about this? Tristan typed back one word, yes. He glanced at his sleeping wife, the woman who had once believed in him before deciding his ambitions weren't grand enough. His pace too slow, his background too common. He thought of the lingering glances she exchanged with Julian Vincent at industry parties, the late nights she claimed to be networking, the faint cologne on her clothes that wasn't his. Tomorrow, he would sign the final papers establishing Apex Ventures, his new venture capital firm funded by silent partners who believed in his vision and his algorithm. It was the first step in a plan that had been forming for months, as he watched his wife's contempt grow in proportion to Julian Vincent's interest in her. On the morning of his 36th birthday, Tristan woke to an empty bed. Celeste had left a note on her pillow. Early meeting with NovaQuest's marketing team. Don't wait up tonight. Happy birthday. He crumpled the note, thinking back to his birthday just a year ago. They had spent the weekend in Sonora Valley, Celeste laughing as they stomped grapes at a boutique winery. When had things changed? His phone rang. Adrian calling to wish him happy birthday, and confirm their lunch meeting. The papers are all signed, Adrian reported. Apex Ventures officially exists, with you as the majority shareholder, but your name buried so deep in the paperwork, it would take a team of forensic accountants to find it. Good, Tristan said. Any movement on the NovaQuest situation? Their stock dipped again yesterday. Vincent's burning through capital like a teenager with a first credit card. The board's getting restless. Tristan smiled. Perfect timing. At work, Damian Hayes called Tristan into his office. Got something for you, he said, sliding a folder across his desk. Promotion. Senior Systems Architect. Comes with a 30% raise and stock options. Tristan's expression revealed nothing as he scanned the offer. Why now? Hayes leaned back in his leather chair. Let's just say a little bird told me NovaQuest has been sniffing around you. Can't lose my best developer to those flashy scoundrels, can I? That evening, Tristan came home to find a small wrapped box on the kitchen counter with a card from Celeste. Inside was a $10 gift card to Burger King, with a note. For the guy who refuses to aim higher, happy birthday to my underachiever husband. Maybe this matches your ambitions. Tristan stared at the gift card, then at his wife's elegant handwriting. The calculated cruelty of it struck him like a physical blow. In 7 years of marriage, he had never seen this side of her. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Check her Instagram. He found Celeste's profile and saw a new post. A photo of her with Julian Vincent at a rooftop bar, champagne glasses raised. The caption read, celebrating new beginnings with the visionary at Julian Vincent. #Future is bright, #moving up. The comments were filled with congratulations, including one from Julian. NovaQuest's lucky to have you joining the team. Here's to working closely together. Tristan's hands trembled as he set down his phone. His wife had taken a job at NovaQuest without telling him, was openly flaunting her relationship with Vincent, and had deliberately humiliated him on his birthday. He picked up the Burger King gift card again, running his finger along its edge. Then he reached for his phone and dialed Adrian. Move up the timeline, he said without preamble. I want to meet with the board members tomorrow. That night, when Celeste came home smelling of expensive cologne and alcohol, Tristan was waiting in the living room, the gift card on the coffee table between them. Enjoy your celebration, he asked quietly. Celeste's expression flickered between surprise and defiance. You saw the post. I did. Congratulations on the new job. When were you planning to tell me? She sank into the armchair across from him, kicking off her heels. I was waiting for the right moment. It all happened so fast. Like our marriage falling apart. Did that happen fast too, or was I just too blind to see it? Don't be dramatic, Tristan. She gestured dismissively. We want different things. Your content in your little cubicle, writing code for someone else's vision. I want more. With Julian Vincent. She didn't deny it. Julian understands ambition. He sees my potential. And this. Tristan held up the gift card. What was this supposed to accomplish? Celeste's laugh was cold. Consider it a wake-up call. You could be so much more, Tristan, if you weren't so average. Julian is offering me everything you can't. Excitement, status, a future that matters. I see. Tristan pocketed the gift card and stood. Thank you for the clarity. Where are you going? I have a late meeting. On your birthday. With who? Tristan paused at the door. Someone who sees my potential. Dawn found Tristan and Adrian in their downtown office in Crescent City, the skyline slowly emerging from darkness outside the floor-to-ceiling windows. They'd been working through the night, preparing for the meeting with Apex Ventures investors. Run me through it one more time, Adrian said, rubbing his bloodshot eyes. Tristan pointed to the complex diagram on the whiteboard. The Nexus algorithm processes data with 87% greater efficiency than anything on the market. It's essentially an artificial neural network that learns and adapts in real time without the computational overhead of traditional systems. And you developed this when? Exactly. Over the past 2 years. Nights, weekends, away from Hayes Tech's equipment and servers. Adrian whistled. And Hayes has no idea. None. I kept everything compartmentalized. The patent applications are under an Apex Ventures subsidiary. There was a knock at the door, and Adrian's assistant entered. Ms. Isadora Ravenswood has arrived. Tristan straightened his tie as Isadora swept in. Tall, commanding, with steel-gray hair in a sleek bob and eyes that missed nothing. As the managing partner of Midnight Investments, her reputation for ruthlessness was legendary. "Mr. Cross," she said, extending her hand. "I've reviewed your proposal and technical documentation. Impressive, if it performs as promised." "It exceeds the specifications," Tristan replied confidently. Isadora took a seat. Cut to the chase. "What are you proposing, exactly?" Tristan exchanged a glance with Adrian before responding. "A hostile takeover of NovaQuest." If Isadora was surprised, she didn't show it. Ambitious. NovaQuest's market cap is $2.8 billion. And falling. Adrian interjected. "They've missed their last 2 quarterly projections. Vincent's bleeding money on vanity projects with no clear path to profitability. Their board is fracturing." Tristan continued. 3 of their 7 directors are already looking for exits. With your backing and our technology, we can acquire controlling interest within 3 months. Isadora's lips curved slightly. "And what's your personal stake in this, Mr. Cross?" "Business is rarely this personal without motivation." Tristan met her gaze steadily. "Julian Vincent has taken something of mine. I'm simply returning the favor. Your wife." It wasn't a question. When Tristan's expression hardened, Isadora actually laughed. "Don't look so surprised. I do my homework." Celeste Cross, recently appointed as NovaQuest's new marketing director. Quite a coincidence. Will that be a problem? "Business is business," Tristan said quietly. "Nothing personal." Her knowing smile indicated she didn't believe him for a second. For the next hour, they hammered out the details. Apex Ventures, backed by Midnight Investments, would begin quietly acquiring NovaQuest shares through various shell companies. Meanwhile, Tristan's Nexus algorithm would be positioned for strategic partnerships that would drive down NovaQuest's value while enhancing Apex's portfolio. As Isadora prepared to leave, she paused at the door. "One last thing, Mr. Cross. When this is over, what exactly do you plan to do with Vincent?" Tristan's expression remained neutral. "Business is business, Ms. Ravenswood. Nothing personal." That afternoon, Tristan resigned from Hayes Tech, citing personal reasons. Damian Hayes tried to convince him to stay with promises of more money, more responsibility. Tristan declined politely but firmly. That evening, when Celeste finally came home, Tristan was packing a suitcase. "Where are you going?" she demanded, watching him fold shirts with military precision. "I resigned today. I need some space to figure out my next move." For the first time, Celeste looked unsettled. "You quit without another job lined up. Because of my gift." "Don't be so sensitive, Tristan. Not everything is about you, Cel," he said quietly. "I've been thinking about making a change for a while now. You helped clarify things for me." "Where will you go?" "Adrian has a guest room. I'll stay there. Until I figure things out." Panic flashed across her face. "We should talk about this. I think you've said everything you needed to say." Tristan headed for the door, then turned back. "By the way, congratulations on NovaQuest. I'm sure you and Julian will work well together." The look of shock on her face as he walked out was the first genuine emotion he'd seen from her in months. 3 months passed with surgical precision. Tristan worked 18-hour days from the offices of Apex Ventures, now occupying the entire 32nd floor of a sleek downtown high-rise in Crescent City. His personal life was non-existent, his marriage in limbo. Celeste had tried calling, then texting, then showing up at Adrian's apartment, only to discover Tristan had moved out weeks earlier. "Another block of shares acquired," Adrian announced, entering Tristan's corner office with a tablet. That puts us at 22%. Tristan nodded, studying the financial projections on his multiple monitors. Vincent's getting nervous. He called a board meeting yesterday. How do you know that? Tristan gestured to one of his screens, where an email from NovaQuest's board secretary was displayed. We have friends in interesting places. Publicly, Apex Ventures was a rising star in venture capital, making strategic investments in promising tech startups. Privately, they were systematically positioning themselves to swallow NovaQuest whole. Tristan's phone rang. A number he didn't recognize. Mr. Cross. Came a female voice with a slight accent. This is Oksana Petrov, Julian Vincent's executive assistant. How can I help you, Ms. Petrov? Mr. Vincent would like to meet with you tomorrow, if possible. He believes you, and he might have mutual interests to discuss. Tristan's mouth curved into a cold smile. Tell Mr. Vincent I'd be delighted. Shall we say noon at Apex Ventures? After ending the call, Tristan summoned his team. Besides Adrian, there was Kiana Reyes, their razor-sharp legal counsel, Daniel "Danny" Frost, a former Wall Street quant who now handled financial strategy, and Nadine Coleman, their head of operations, the only person besides Adrian who knew the full scope of Tristan's plan. Vincent's coming here tomorrow, Tristan informed them. He's figured out someone's buying up NovaQuest shares, but he doesn't know it's us yet. What's your play? Nadine asked, her analytical mind already running scenarios. We let him think I'm a potential white knight investor, someone he can bring in to help stabilize NovaQuest's position against this mysterious hostile takeover attempt. Kiana frowned. Isn't that dangerously close to securities fraud? Not if I never explicitly agree to anything, Tristan countered. I'll listen to his proposal, express interest, and make no commitments. Meanwhile, Danny, accelerate our acquisition timeline. We're already pushing the limits, Danny warned. If we move too aggressively, the SEC might notice. Then be creative, Tristan replied. We need 30% ownership before their quarterly earnings call next week. The next day, Julian Vincent arrived at Apex Ventures precisely at noon, exuding the confidence of a man accustomed to getting his way. Tall, with perfectly styled dark hair and a smile that had graced the covers of business magazines, he extended his hand as if bestowing a favor. Cross, he said, surveying the modern office. Quite the operation you've built here in 3 months. Impressive. Tristan's handshake was firm, his smile neutral. Thank you. Though I've been laying the groundwork for years. That's what I've heard. Your algorithm has people talking. Vincent glanced around. Damian Hayes must be kicking himself for letting you slip away. I doubt he's lost much sleep over it, Tristan replied. In the conference room, with its stunning view of the bay, they sat across from each other like chess players. I'll be direct, Vincent said. Someone's making a play for NovaQuest, buying up shares through shell companies so complex it would make a seasoned investigator proud. Sounds concerning, Tristan replied mildly. It is. I need allies, people who understand NovaQuest's vision. Vincent's smile turned conspiratorial. People like you, with resources and technological innovations that align with our future. What exactly are you proposing? A strategic partnership, your Nexus algorithm integrated with our platforms, plus a significant capital investment from Apex. In return, you get a seat on our board and preferential licensing terms. Tristan appeared to consider this an interesting proposition, though I have to wonder why you'd approach me specifically. Vincent's smile never wavered, but something calculating entered his eyes. Your reputation precedes you, brilliant mind, sudden access to substantial capital. Plus, we have a mutual connection who speaks highly of your potential. Celeste, Tristan said flatly. Celeste has been a tremendous asset to our team. Her insight is remarkable. Vincent paused. She mentioned you two were going through a transitional period. Did she now? These things happen. People grow apart, seek different paths. Business shouldn't suffer because of personal complications. Tristan allowed a thin smile. I couldn't agree more, which is why I'll need time to consider carefully. Due diligence, you understand. Of course. Vincent stood. But don't take too long. Our mysterious buyer isn't waiting. After Vincent left, Nadine entered the conference room. You didn't tell him. That would spoil the surprise, Tristan replied, turning to the window. How long until we reach 30%? With the trade, Danny has couped up tomorrow afternoon. Good. And the board members we've approached. Palmer and Richardson are on board. That gives us 2 seats already, plus our 30% voting block. Tristan nodded, watching Vincent's sleek car pull away below. Schedule the meeting for Monday morning after their earnings call. It's time Julian Vincent learned who he's really dealing with. That evening, as Tristan worked late in his office, the private elevator chimed. Only 5 people had access codes, and it was well past business hours. He looked up as the doors opened to reveal Celeste, looking both determined and uncertain. How did you get access to my elevator? He asked calmly. Adrian. I told him it was an emergency. She stepped inside, taking in the expansive space with obvious surprise. This is not what I expected. What did you expect? I don't know. When you said you quit to figure things out, I pictured you soul-searching on some beach, not. She gestured at the trappings of power. Sorry to disappoint. Tristan leaned back in his chair. What do you want, Celeste? She moved closer, perching on the edge of his desk. You met with Julian today. I did. He wouldn't tell you what we discussed. Probably because it's confidential business between Apex Ventures and NovaQuest. Celeste studied him, really looking at him, perhaps for the first time in years. Who are you? This company, this office, none of this existed 3 months ago. Perhaps you never really knew me. Tristan closed his laptop. Or perhaps you were too busy looking elsewhere to notice what was right in front of you. Is this about Julian and me? Because it's not what you think. Tristan actually laughed. Please don't insult my intelligence on top of everything else. Celeste's expression hardened. Fine. Yes, Julian and I are involved. But it's not just personal, it's professional. He sees my value, appreciates my contributions. As he so eloquently explained today when attempting to use you as leverage against me. Her face paled. What are you talking about? He made it quite clear that your relationship was part of his calculation in approaching me. Personal complications, I believe he called it. You're lying. Why would I bother? Tristan stood, coming around the desk. What exactly did you hope to accomplish by coming here tonight, Celeste? Damage control? Information for your lover? Or just curiosity about the husband you discarded? Tears welled in her eyes. Whether genuine or calculated, he couldn't tell. I made a mistake. The gift card, the things I said. I was frustrated and unhappy. So unhappy you jumped into bed with my competitor. It wasn't like that. It just happened. Things don't just happen. We make choices. Tristan walked to the elevator and pressed the call button. You made yours. Now I'm making mine. What does that mean? What are you planning? You'll find out soon enough. Give Julian my regards. Monday morning arrived with a media frenzy. NovaQuest's quarterly earnings disappointed the market for the 3rd consecutive quarter, its stock plummeting 17% in pre-market trading. Analysts questioned Vincent's leadership and strategic vision. In the chaos, few noticed the SEC filing revealing that Apex Ventures held 34% of NovaQuest's shares. By the time the press caught on, Tristan was already walking into NovaQuest's headquarters for the emergency board meeting. The security guard at the front desk looked confused when Tristan presented his ID. I don't have you on the visitor list, Mr. Cross. Check again, Tristan suggested. I believe Ms. Ravenswood added me this morning. After a phone call, the guard reluctantly issued a visitor badge. As Tristan waited for the elevator, He spotted Celeste crossing the lobby with a group of executives. She froze when she saw him, excusing herself from her colleagues. "What are you doing here?" she hissed. "Board meeting." "You're not on the board." "Not yet," Tristan said as the elevator doors opened. The boardroom was tense when Tristan entered. Julian Vincent was at the head of the table, surrounded by nervous directors. He looked up, his expression darkening when he saw Tristan. "Cross. This is a closed meeting." "Actually," came Isadora Ravenswood's cool voice, "Mr. Cross is here at my invitation. As representatives of Apex Ventures, we hold 34% of NovaQuest's voting shares." The room erupted in confused murmurs. Vincent's face flushed with anger. "That's impossible." The SEC filings were submitted at 5:01 a.m. Isadora finished for him. "Perfect timing, wouldn't you say, just before your disappointing earnings report?" "You're behind the shell companies," Vincent realized, glaring at Tristan. "This was your plan all along. I did try to warn you about taking too long with your decision." Tristan replied, taking an empty seat. "Now shall we begin? I believe the first item is a vote of confidence in the current CEO." What followed was a methodical dismantling of Julian Vincent's authority. With Apex Ventures shares plus the votes of 2 disgruntled board members, they quickly achieved a majority. Vincent was removed as CEO, though he retained his board seat, a strategic move to avoid immediate litigation. "This is temporary," Vincent seethed. "I still own 18% of this company. My allies are rapidly abandoning ship." Adrian cut in, showing incoming messages from Vincent's supposed supporters. Fascinating how quickly loyalty evaporates when the stock price drops. The doors opened, and Celeste rushed in, her face pale with shock. "Julian, what's happening?" she exclaimed. "The marketing department is getting calls from reporters saying you've been ousted." Her eyes landed on Tristan, sitting calmly at the table. Understanding dawned. "Ms. Cross," Isadora said smoothly, "as this is now a confidential board matter, I'll have to ask you to leave unless you have relevant business to present." "I'm the marketing director," Celeste protested. "Of course I have relevant business." "Actually," Tristan corrected gently, "you're the former marketing director." "The board has voted to restructure the executive team, effective immediately." Celeste stared at him in disbelief. "You can't do this." "We just did." Tristan nodded to security, who had been summoned discreetly. "Please escort Ms. Cross to HR to process her exit paperwork." As Celeste was led away, her shock turning to fury, Vincent leaned across the table toward Tristan. "You think you've won? I built this company." "We'll see about that." Tristan opened a folder and slid a document to each board member. "Our next order of business. Reviewing the audit of executive decisions over the past 18 months. You'll find some interesting patterns in Mr. Vincent's allocation of company resources." For the next 2 hours, Tristan methodically presented evidence of Vincent's mismanagement. Vanity projects approved without oversight, personal expenses charged to the company, and most damning, prototype technologies borrowed from smaller firms without proper compensation. By meeting's end, Vincent's remaining allies on the board had fallen silent. A temporary CEO was appointed, not Tristan, but a respected industry veteran, as suggested by Apex. As everyone adjourned, Vincent cornered Tristan in the hallway. "You think you're so clever, turning my board against me, taking my company, firing Celeste. You have no idea who you're dealing with." "On the contrary," Tristan replied quietly, "I know exactly who I'm dealing with, a man who takes what isn't his and calls it ambition." "This is about Celeste." Vincent laughed incredulously. "You did all this because I slept with your wife." "No, I did all this because you're a mediocre businessman masquerading as a visionary, bleeding a good company dry with your ego. Celeste was just a bonus." Tristan stepped closer, voice dropping. "But since you brought her up, yes, I do take exception to men who poach another man's spouse as a trophy." "She came to me," Vincent hissed. begged me to rescue her from her dead-end marriage to a nobody. Tristan's smile was cold. And yet here we are. You removed from the company you built, her unemployed and humiliated, and me, the nobody, controlling it all. Vincent's expression darkened. You've made two powerful enemies today. Cross. This isn't over. Actually, it is. Tristan checked his watch. Security should be clearing out your office as we speak. I'd hate for you to miss saying goodbye to your precious artwork. Over the next 48 hours, NovaQuest's servers were hit with a sophisticated cyber attack that compromised client data. Simultaneously, 3 major clients announced they were reviewing their contracts, spooked by the leadership changes. It's Vincent, the interim CEO, Brandon Fisher, declared during an emergency meeting. He's calling in favors, pressuring clients to jump ship. And the cyber attack. The head of it, a nervous man named Preston, shook his head. Too sophisticated for an inside job. These are mercenaries for hire. Focus on containment, Tristan instructed. Reach out personally to every affected client, with full transparency about our response. As they worked, Tristan received a text from an unknown number. You take from me. I take from you. This is just the beginning. Che. He showed it to Adrian, who whistled. He's not even trying to be subtle. Good. The more erratic he becomes, the easier he'll be to handle. Tristan pocketed his phone. Have Kiana prepare injunction paperwork. When he makes his next move, I want to be ready. That move came sooner than expected. Business channels reported that Julian Vincent was launching a new venture, Ascendant Technologies, with $150 million in funding. More concerning, he had poached 12 key engineers from NovaQuest overnight. How did he manage that? Fisher demanded. Those employees had non-competes. Money talks, Adrian replied, grim. And Vincent knows where all the bodies are buried at NovaQuest. He probably had leverage. Tristan remained calm. This works in our favor. Vincent is showing his hand too early. How is losing our core engineering team in our favor? Fisher asked in disbelief. Because now we have clear evidence of tortious interference and violation of fiduciary duty. Tristan nodded to Kiana. File everything. The cyber attack, the client pressure, the employee poaching. Build the case methodically. That evening, Tristan worked alone in his office at Apex Ventures when the elevator chimed. He looked up, surprised to see Julian Vincent stride in, looking both angry and strangely triumphant. Bold move, Tristan remarked, coming here unannounced. I thought we should talk man to man, Vincent said, taking the seat. You've impressed me, Cross. I underestimated you. A common mistake, Tristan said. Indeed. Now we're at an impasse. You've taken my company. I'm building a new one designed to destroy what you've taken. Vincent leaned forward. Or we could come to an arrangement. What kind of arrangement? A truce. You return control of NovaQuest to me through a negotiated board settlement. I bring my new funding and team back into the fold. We integrate your algorithm and become the dominant force in the industry. We both win. Tristan studied him. And Celeste. Vincent's smile was cold. A casualty of war, I'm afraid. Useful for a time, but ultimately expendable. She served her purpose, which was getting close to you, learning your habits, your patterns. She was feeding me information for months before things became personal. Tristan absorbed this without visible reaction, though inside something hardened further. So, your proposition is, I hand back what I've rightfully acquired in exchange for a partnership with a man who used my wife to spy on me, then discarded her when convenient. When you put it that way, it sounds one-sided. Vincent laughed. But consider the alternative. A prolonged corporate war that damages us both. And don't think I haven't noticed your vulnerability. And what might that be? Your precious algorithm depends on processing efficiency. But Ascendant now has the engineers who built NovaQuest's infrastructure, the very infrastructure you're trying to integrate with. They know all the weaknesses and shortcuts. Tristan allowed himself a small smile. You really should have verified their loyalty before poaching them. Vincent's confidence wavered. What do you mean? 3 of your new hires were already working with us. The other 9 have vulnerabilities that make them susceptible to pressure. Tristan opened his laptop, showing surveillance photos of the engineers meeting covertly with Nadine. You were so focused on hurting me that you didn't bother to check their loyalty. You're bluffing. Am I? Tristan closed the laptop. Tomorrow morning, you'll receive evidence tracing the cyberattack back to your contractors. Simultaneously, those poached engineers will find their access revoked, their signing bonuses returned, their employment terminated. You can't do that. I already have. Tristan pressed a button on his desk phone. Security will escort you out. Do consider my offer. Walk away, retire quietly, sign a non-compete keeping you out of tech for 5 years, and I won't pursue criminal charges. Vincent stood, trembling with rage. You think you can threaten me? I built NovaQuest. I have connections you can't imagine. Had, Tristan corrected. Your stock is falling, Julian, in every sense of the word. By tomorrow, you'll be toxic in Falcon Ridge. This isn't over, Cross. Actually, it is. You just haven't realized it yet. The next morning, the FBI Cybercrimes Division paid Tristan a visit in the form of Special Agent Gabriela Sandoval. Mr. Cross, she said, I believe you've been expecting me. Have I? Tristan raised an eyebrow. 3 weeks ago, we received an anonymous tip about cyberespionage, targeting Apex Ventures and NovaQuest. The evidence was comprehensive, including predictions of future attacks that have since materialized, almost as if someone had inside information. Tristan remained impassive. How can I help with your investigation? We traced the latest attacks to a group in Eastern Europe, funded through offshore accounts. We believe Mr. Vincent is the ultimate source, but we need more evidence. Tristan opened a drawer and removed a USB drive. This contains communications between Vincent and the hackers. The encryption was challenging, but not impossible. How did you obtain this? Legally, Tristan assured her. He used NovaQuest resources to coordinate the attacks. As a board member with oversight responsibility, I had authority to review suspicious network traffic. Sandoval took the drive, looking skeptical but intrigued. This isn't just corporate warfare for you, is it, Mr. Cross? I believe in consequences, Agent Sandoval. Some people think their wealth places them above the law. His eyes hardened slightly. I disagree. After she left, Adrian entered, looking concerned. FBI. That's playing with fire, Tristan. Calculated risk, he replied. Sandoval's been building a case against these hackers for months. I simply helped connect the dots. Indeed, by evening, Tristan's security detail reported someone had tried to break into his apartment, triggering the silent alarm. The police apprehended a man who claimed to work for a private investigation firm hired by Julian Vincent. What was he looking for? Tristan asked the security chief over the phone. Wouldn't say specifically, but he had copying equipment for documents and digital media. Have our legal team meet the police. I want maximum charges pressed. Meanwhile, across town, Celeste was meeting Vincent at an upscale hotel bar, both looking increasingly desperate. The FBI visited my lawyer today, Vincent said, downing his scotch in one gulp. They're building a case on the cyberattacks. Can they trace it back to you? Celeste asked, face pale. Maybe. I used coutouts and proxies, but nothing's truly untraceable. What about finding leverage on Tristan? My guy got caught breaking into his apartment. Amateur hour. Vincent's expression darkened. Your husband is always one step ahead. He's not psychic, Celeste insisted. He's just careful. Vincent studied her. There is one thing we haven't tried. The one vulnerability even Tristan Cross can't guard against completely. What's that? You. Vincent leaned closer. He might have protected himself legally and professionally, but emotionally, there's always some attachment. A reconciliation play. You go to him, contrite and vulnerable. Tell him you've seen through me. Play to his ego. Celeste frowned. Tristan's not easily fooled. He's still a man, and men have weaknesses. Unless you're having second thoughts about us. No, of course not, she said quickly. I'll do it, but I need time to make it convincing. Time is the one thing we don't have. Vincent's expression hardened. You go to him tomorrow. Tonight. We prepare. Unknown to them, their entire conversation was being recorded by a waitress who worked for Nadine Coleman rather than the hotel. Early the following morning, Tristan convened his inner circle at Apex Ventures. Adrian, Nadine, Kiana, and Danny. They listened to the recording of Celeste and Vincent's discussion in grim silence. So they're desperate, Adrian observed. As expected, Tristan replied. Vincent's running out of options. What about Celeste? Nadine asked. She seemed hesitant. Hesitant, but compliant, Tristan corrected. She's made her choice again. Time to end this. He outlined his plan. By the time he finished, even his loyal allies looked unsettled by its ruthless precision. That's comprehensive, Adrian said at last. Vincent left me no choice, Tristan said. He escalated at every turn. Later that day, as predicted, Tristan got a call from Celeste asking to meet. Her voice was tearful and contrite, a performance that might have been convincing had Tristan not heard her plot with Vincent. They met in a quiet restaurant in Riverton. Tristan arrived early, ensuring everything was set. Celeste arrived looking distressed, her designer clothes slightly rumpled, her makeup subtle but accentuating reddened eyes. Thank you for meeting me, she said softly, taking a seat. You said it was important. It is. I've made a terrible mistake, Tristan. Her voice quivered. Julian. He's not who I thought. The things he's done, it's frightening. In what way? He's obsessed with destroying you. It's all he talks about. She reached across the table, trying to take his hand. Tristan moved his hand away, ostensibly to adjust his napkin. I realized I was just a pawn to him, Celeste continued. I was blind not to see your potential. What you've built is extraordinary. I should have believed in you from the start. Tristan studied her calmly. What do you want from this conversation? She took another shaky breath. A second chance. Not immediately. I know too much has happened, but I want the chance to show you I've changed, that I regret everything. He's dangerous, Tristan. He's planning desperate things. I can help you, warn you. We can work together like we should have from the beginning. Tristan regarded her for a long moment, expression unreadable. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a small device, placing it on the table between them. Do you know what this is? Celeste looked confused. A recorder. It's a signal jammer. It prevents anyone from listening in right now. Tristan said quietly, which means I can speak frankly. Her face paled, but she kept her composure. You're working with Vincent, he continued, to get close to me, find leverage, and help him destroy me. That's absurd. I know about your meeting last night, how he squeezed your wrist when you hesitated, how you agreed to infiltrate my life again. I've had you monitored for months, Celeste. She dropped the pretense. Why go through with this meeting then? Why not just ignore me? Because it's time to end this. All of it. Tristan placed a folder on the table. These are the terms of your surrender. My what? This folder contains evidence of your complicity in Vincent's schemes, enough to destroy your reputation in this industry, possibly enough to land you in legal jeopardy. You're bluffing. Tristan opened the folder, showing her photographs, transcripts, bank records. Careless, or perhaps Julian was. Either way, the trail leads back to both of you. Her face hardened. What do you want? Cut ties with Vincent immediately. Release a public statement retracting your claims about our marriage. Sign the divorce papers I've prepared, and accept the same settlement I offered before. Our house, your personal accounts, nothing more. And if I refuse, then tomorrow morning, this evidence goes to the FBI, the SEC, and every major tech publication." Tristan said, voice calm but final. "Your choice, Celeste. A comfortable if diminished life, or potential charges alongside Vincent." She searched his face for any sign of weakness. Finding none, her shoulders slumped. "You really had it planned from the beginning, didn't you?" "No. I was waiting to see if you were still the woman I married," Tristan said, closing the folder. "You made your choice clear long before that gift card. That was just your final mistake. And Julian, what happens to him?" "That depends on his next move." Tristan checked his watch. "Which should be happening right about now." Across town, Julian Vincent was being led out of his luxury condo in handcuffs. FBI agents, including Gabriella Sandoval, surrounding him as reporters snapped photos. "Julian Vincent," Sandoval announced, "you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit computer fraud, corporate espionage, and interstate transmission of threats. You have the right to remain silent." The evidence package Sandoval received that morning was comprehensive. Emails, financial transfers, recorded conversations, plus testimony from the hackers who chose to cooperate rather than face long prison sentences. Back at the restaurant, Tristan showed Celeste the live stream of Vincent's arrest on his phone. Her face drained of color. "You set him up," she whispered. "He set himself up," Tristan corrected. "I just ensured his actions had consequences." Celeste stared at him. "Who are you?" "I told you. I've always been who I am. You just chose not to see it." He placed a pen on the table beside the folder. "Sign, Celeste. A clean break or federal charges. Your decision." With trembling fingers, she picked up the pen. "I never stood a chance, did I?" "You had every chance," Tristan said softly. "Every day we were married was a chance to be a partner, instead of always looking for the next opportunity. We can't rewrite the past. We can only decide what happens next." Celeste signed the papers, her signature shaky. As she did, a small item fell from her purse. The $10 Burger King gift card. Tristan picked it up, a slight smile touching his lips. "Keep it," he said, placing it back in front of her. A reminder that the price of betrayal is always higher than it seems. 6 months later, Tristan Cross stood at the windows of his office at Apex Ventures, watching the Crescent City skyline glitter in the evening light. The view hadn't changed much, but everything else had. NovaQuest, under the steady leadership of Brandon Fisher, had not only recovered but thrived. The Nexus algorithm revolutionized their core products, and their stock had tripled since Vincent's arrest. Apex Ventures expanded its portfolio, developing a reputation for funding not just profitable ventures but meaningful ones. Tristan's phone buzzed. Another text from Adrian. "The Miami pilot project for hurricane prediction models using Nexus is showing unprecedented accuracy. A breakthrough." "That's very good," Tristan murmured, genuinely pleased, not because it would make him richer, but because it would save lives, because it was building rather than breaking. He recalled the words Nadine had said, "You've won, completely." What now? For a while, he hadn't had an answer, but now, it was evolving into something more than revenge or proving his worth. It was purpose. Damian Hayes, of Hayes Tech, had recently come asking for help with a floundering project. A year earlier, Tristan might have turned him away just to savor the moment. Instead, he had said, "Send me the details. If it benefits both sides, we'll talk." In a quiet drawer, Tristan kept a single photograph. His mother on the day he graduated from Northbridge Tech. She never saw what he built, but he liked to think she'd approve, not just of his success, but of what he planned to do with it. As dusk settled into night, Tristan smiled at the brightening lights of the city. The best revenge wasn't just success, It was having a future that truly mattered.